here live on location at Global Grove. We got a real special guest here today, Alan Stein. Alan's coming to us to live. You in Brooklyn, Alan?
Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah, coming to us live from New York. Alan is a cousin of mine. Married my cousin Melanie, and he's got a really awesome company called Kadima Careers. He's doing a lot of job placement, but I'll let him introduce himself. Alan, you want to hop into it?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Peter, for having me on the podcast. Been a big fan, and now I'm actually on the show, so thank you. And yes, I know you because I did marry your cousin. I married up, so I was very fortunate that Melanie, my wife, said yes to me and invited me into the larger Groverman family. But a little bit about me. I've had a 30-year career working in the corporate world, lots of different businesses. So I started my career thinking I was going to be a PhD in psychology, dropped out of that, went onto Wall Street. I was there at some big banks as an equity analyst, then moved into venture capital. Then I read the book Moneyball, and I was like, I want to be Billy Beane. And I figured out how to get into baseball. I worked for the New York Mets and the Toronto Blue Jays minor league affiliates. Realized that the pay sucked, the work-life balance sucked, and I was like, I got to do something about this. So I set my sights on an MBA and spent $138,000 back then in 2004. Went to Columbia Business School. After there, went to American Express for 5.5 years. I got a little tired of people telling me that your career here is a marathon, not a sprint, and I like to move faster. So I set my sights on big tech. And after 5 rejections and 11 interviews after that, I got into Google. I was there for 5.5 years, leading customer success teams, operation teams, tech support teams, product operation teams. Left Google, worked at a couple of startups, realized that the grass is not greener at startups for lots of reasons, decided to go back to big tech, worked at Facebook, now called Meta. I was there for 1.5 years. My boss left there. He went to Tableau. He recruited me over to Tableau, and then Tableau was acquired by Salesforce. So I've worked at a lot of the big tech companies. But what I am most excited about is an endeavor that I launched 1.5 years ago called Kadima Careers, and it's all about the swag. So you see the swag here for those watching me on video. And what Kadima does, which is a Hebrew word for forward, is helps accelerate careers. So I help people get into the top companies in the world, generally focusing on the tech industry. But I don't know if you heard, there's a little bit of a few layoffs occurring. Yes, today was 12,000 at Google. The day before was 10,000 at Microsoft. So the tech companies, they still pay well, they still treat people well, but they are hiring a lot less. So I help people accelerate their careers and achieve their goals and get into companies of their dreams, even though there's no dream job, and we can talk about that. But that's a little bit about me, and I'm super excited to be on the pod with you, Peter.
Well, that's a great overview. I mean, off the bat, my first question is: you worked at tons of places. Is there one place of all the corporations that you touched that you had the best experience at, or that you would, if you ranked them, they'd be your number one work environment?
Yep, the Google.
And what made Google phenomenal. So good?
They hire really well. They hire smart people.
And when you say you were turned down by 5, you interviewed 5 times, turned down 5 times, and the 6th time they let you in?
I submitted 5 resumes for roles that I was a really good fit for. And I never got a response. I think I got a rejection for 1, and the other 4, they never even replied back to me. Only through a referral. A friend of mine who happened to play softball with a friend of his said, "Oh, I know this director at Google. Do you want to speak to this guy, Ben?" I was like, "Sure." And I spoke to Ben. Ben was a really good guy. He liked my background. He put me in as a referral. And then the next day, a recruiter, a real human being at Google, finally started talking to me. I still had to go through 11 interviews, but if not for that door being open because of a referral, I would never have been considered for a role at Google.
And what made Google so good?
Well, first off, the food is damn good. They do offer good food. The pay is ridiculously good. So when you look across all the companies out there, right now, Google pays the highest median compensation of any company. They have 175,000 employees. 85,000 of them make north of $296,000. So it's not too shabby of compensation. They treat you really well. They actually, unlike any other company that I worked for, they were actually very open to feedback and very open to dissension of opinion. They would have people complain about Google products. And it was a very different situation when I was at American Express, where we would get our wrist slapped if we had a Visa or MasterCard in our wallet. And I got my wrist slapped once because of that. So it was very open culture. It's very transparent.
They had an issue with you having a Visa? Like, that was an issue?
Yeah, like it wasn't actually me, but I hid it after that. But somebody had in their badge, their American Express badge, on the other side of their badge, they had like a Visa card in there, so that they can like use their card when they're paying for things. And our COO at the time saw that this person had a Visa card hanging on their badge, called their manager to complain about this person, and that person no longer, like, they still had a job, but that person was no longer allowed to publicly display the fact that they had their Visa card. So after that, I actually hid my cards. I still use Visa, I still use MasterCard, but yeah. So Google was very open to feedback. They do a lot of things right. It's not perfect. There's definitely bureaucracy and politics there and some BS, but compared to the other 20 organizations that I've worked with in my career, and I've worked at 21 companies, they are the best.
Got it. All right. Well, that's pretty interesting. And all right. And what happens? There's all these massive layoffs going on right now. You said, 10,000 today from Google. What was it yesterday? 12,000?
12,000 Google, 10,000 yesterday at Microsoft. Facebook laid off 11,000. Elon Musk fires more
this
people
is a lot
every day.
Of people.
Yeah.
So, and these are all college educated. I must say, like, middle, upper class demographic, middle class. Right?
They're well educated, talented individuals. The Grim Reaper, the corporate Grim Reaper, is not being so discriminate in terms of who he is tapping on their shoulder.
And what happens to these people? Because they can't all get immediately placed. And I'm sure, and it's not like there's a new industry that I know of or companies that are forming right now that are hiring hundreds and hundreds of people, right? Well,
first off, these companies are still hiring. So if you look at Google's career board, I didn't look at it today, I looked at it yesterday, they had over 1,000 jobs open. So the companies are still hiring. The top 100 companies that we look at Kadima, as of last week, had 235,000 roles open. So there's still lots of jobs available. There are also other companies that now are eating up some of this high quality talent. So a company like, let's say Pfizer, or let's say General Motors, or let's say American Express, that had needs for technical program managers or people that would have a technical background and can never compete for the Google and Amazon and Facebook talent. Now they have the ability to acquire that talent. So some of the more traditional Fortune 500 companies, startups. Personally, for me, I just hired a great program manager. She wasn't impacted by those tech layoffs, but she's on the market for some of these actions that are occurring. So there's lots of jobs open, but these companies overhired, and now they're just zigging after they zagged when they overhired.
And all right, so that gives a little bit of assurance. What's that number? 230,000.
The top 100 companies, and you can pick up that list at kadimacareers.com/top 100. But if you look at the top 100 companies that we've selected based on a variety of variables, have 235,000 jobs open right now. Wow. The median number of job openings at those 100 companies is about 450. So there are lots of jobs open. Doesn't mean that they are applicable to everybody that is listening to your podcast right now, but there's a lot of jobs still open. And these companies are still growing at 10, 20% a year, and they will hire again.
And what job right now, January 2023, are you seeing like most in vogue? Like, is there something that just now like companies are realizing they need this position more than other positions?
I don't know about that. I would say on the flip side, the job that they need least is recruiting, because these companies were. So I don't know if there's a specific job. I'm sure LinkedIn has that information or Indeed has that information. But I know there is a glut of recruiters, because for a while, these companies, like when I say that these top 100 companies now have 235,000 jobs open, about 6 or 9 months ago, they had 550 or 560,000 jobs open. They were hiring recruiters left and right, and all those recruiters no longer have anything to do.
So then how does Kadima Careers pop or stick out, or how do you, or you just don't target those tech? But that's your sweet spot. How do you make sure that you stay relevant?
So I stay relevant because people are coming to me now because they're out of work. I've always told people to always be looking, whether you are laid off or whether you're not. You should always assume that you are a free agent. In the US, in most countries, you are employed at will. And what employed at will means is the company can fire you at any time for any reason, and you're seeing that with the layoffs, but it also means that you can leave at any time for any reason. So I've always advised people to keep your resume fresh, to keep your LinkedIn open to work, not publicly, but there's a way to do it privately so that you make it aware to recruiters, and you should always be looking. What's happening now is people are like, oh, damn, I just lost my job. I need to figure this out. And now they're coming to me. So I'm more relevant than ever in terms of supporting people in their time of need. I am not necessarily getting them jobs, even though I have gotten people jobs at Microsoft, at all the FANGs, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, Apple. Those companies are not gobbling up talent as much. But I just got a woman, a Kadima client. She just got laid off from Facebook as part of their 11,000 layoffs. And she just got a sweet gig, an executive role at L'Oreal, being the director of, I believe, like brand marketing. So these companies are eating up this talent, and people that are getting laid off that were not prepared are not taking the right actions. They don't know what to do. It's come as a surprise to them. And it's terrible that it's come that way, but people should always be prepared that this can happen to you at any time for any reason. I've been laid off 5 times in my career, and only only one time did I really have adequate time to prepare.
All right. And what do you like? What's on average? I don't want to generalize people, but is there something that you see that maybe it's just that is that people don't have a backup plan? But is there any other tips or tricks that you're advising more so than not?
You need to have resilience. You need to understand how the job acquisition process works. People call it recruiting. I call it job acquisition. I look at it from the candidate's perspective. When you are applying for a job, you are competing with hundreds, in some of these big tech companies, thousands of candidates. The odds are stacked against you. You are going to more likely get rejected than accepted into a role. Last time I was looking for a job in a concerted way, I applied to 300 jobs. I got 5 offers, but that means 295 times I either got rejected, ignored, or ghosted. And 165 out of those 295 rejections, they never got back to me. Maybe they'll get back to me one day. It was a year and a half ago, but they have not gotten back to me.
And you had 5 offers.
So 300 jobs, I got 47 interviews. So about 15% went to the interview stage. Of those 47, 20 made it to the final round. Of those 20 final round, 5 got to the offer stage. Of those 5 offers, I took 0 because none of them were better than my situation at Salesforce. But I was actively looking because I knew I was leaving Salesforce.
And for like a novice entrepreneur, when it comes to applying for jobs, applying to 300 jobs, that just seems like a lot of work, right? And then you're organized as hell, knowing you. So you've got, that's the week's worth of commitment just to apply, right?
Well, it was over about a 6-month period. So it wasn't 300 at once. It was about like 10 applications per week on average or something like that, 10 or 15 per week. But yes, you take a systematic approach to it, and that's another key success factor. You need to be consistent. You need to have a process in place. You need to have your target companies that you're aiming for. And most importantly, and this is something that you're amazing at, you need to build relationships, because that is how you get these jobs. 24 out of the 29 jobs. That's
You
how I
knew a
got the
guy that
Google
knew a
job.
guy.
Exactly.
Right. All right. And I mean, at what point did you decide that, what did it where you like woke up and you were just like, you know what? I'm going to start Kadima Careers.
There's a few things. I kept getting fired. So I was like, I don't work well with corporate environment. So
And was that
when
what were you getting fired strictly because it was like a personality conflict, or you just was there an underlining reason for your separation or
so
constant separations?
the 5 times I've been asked to leave, one time was poor performance. I was in venture capital. They gave me a performance plan. They told me I needed to do stuff. I wasn't that motivated. I didn't do the stuff. They got rid of me in a nice way. They took me out to sushi, great sushi restaurant. I'm still friends with them all, but that one was deserved. And I'm not going to go into the details of what happened to the other 4. One of them, I said something stupid. I apologized. I was honestly apologetic. I admitted that I said something stupid, and I got fired for that. So that was my bad. Another one was I pushed back against a senior leader who was harassing and a bully, and my team, like I was losing talent on my team, and I reported it. And even though it was supposed to be anonymous, it wound up not playing back well for me. Another one was because of politics. My boss left. Another boss came in, and he didn't like me. He wanted to bring someone else in, so he pushed me out. Another one was I pushed back against the leadership. They brought me into this company because of my extensive experience. I was telling them, hey, this is what we need to do. This is how Google does it. This is how American Express does it. And they didn't want to hear it. And so that one was that one.
Right. And so then what was the thing that then you woke up, you're like, I'm doing this. Because that's a huge step.
It's a combination of things. So one, COVID, we were all at home. I frankly didn't have to work that hard when I was at Salesforce. When I was at a company and in a role for more than 6 months, I was pretty much ramped up and I didn't have to bust my hump. So I wasn't doing that much work. I had a strong team. They were doing the work. And I also realized that the harder I worked was not paying off. So I was like, I'm done busting my hump for a company that I'm not going to get rewarded for. So I just kind of skated by and I was like, what do I want to do? What do I like doing? And I've always been someone where people have come to me for career advice. I got 9 people into Google as a referral, which is kind of unheard of. And I just have a natural interest and talent to help people with their careers. So people used to come to me with that. My wife, Melanie, was taking some group coaching course, and I saw what they were doing with that. I was like, I could apply that same group coaching model to people that want to accelerate their career. And also, I was very passionate about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I saw these companies talking a big-ass game, whether it was when Trayvon Martin got murdered in 2012 while I worked at Google, or when George Floyd got murdered in 2020 while I was at Salesforce. And Melanie, my wife, was reading Ibram Kendi's book about how to be an anti-racist. And anti-racism is about, I know you're not a racist dude, I'm not a racist dude, but it's not about being passive and just saying, oh yeah, like I like Black people, I like Latin people, I like people of all different type, but it's actually about doing something and taking action and making an impact. And so I thought about where I can take action and make an impact. And what I'm really good at is helping people get into these companies. So all that stuff kind of came together. I started dabbling with it as a side business, started doing some coaching, started getting paid. I started getting paid a lot of money. And I was like, damn, I can do this. And I don't have to report to somebody, some a-hole who's going to be saying one thing and not doing what they say. I was like, I'm going to start doing this. And I did it as a side hustle. And eventually it became big enough and Salesforce became frustrating enough. And we reached a nice agreement and I departed Salesforce and went all in on Kadima.
That's great. And then it must have been a great feeling having that first person that you placed. It must have been an epic
that guy got into Microsoft. He went from Genpact, like as a VP, to a manager at Microsoft, but he went up by $175,000. So who cares about his title? And then I continued to work with that guy, and now he's at Google making. He has like almost tripled his compensation since I started working with him, from going from Genpact to Microsoft to Google. The guy followed, like he was very good at following what I told him to do. And yeah, this stuff works.
Well, you better get you a nice birthday present this year. That's amazing, Alan.
Yeah. Well,
right,
I got a good picture with it. He took me out. He gave me free lunch at Google. He put me on the invite list, and I went back to Google, which I've been back to about 10 or 15 times since I left Google, because I do like their free lunches.
What's the, out of curiosity, best meal they make for lunch there?
My favorite is lobster mac and cheese.
What?
Yeah, and they also have a great food truck that they brought into the 8th floor, and they do tacos and different things. But I like the lobster mac and cheese, and they do not skimp on the lobster.
Oh, I want to do that.
I took our cousin Noah there. I don't think they had lobster mac and cheese that day. That's a special occasion, but they always have good stuff. I forget what he got when he came.
Okay, and what are your thoughts about? I mean, just like changing gears a little bit, but thoughts on like the workforce environment, January 2023 right now in general. It's kind of a weird time. Yeah. You got people. I hear rumors about a 4-day work week. There's quiet quitting, which is a real thing. You got people who are, unemployed, probably just living off like some plan for the next couple months that get their feet together. Is it like, and then you got people working from home, the work from home or work from office type of, world. I mean, it's a weird, unique time to be professional.
Yeah, and a lot of people are doing side hustles like I'm doing. I just spoke to this guy earlier today. He works at Deloitte, but he's running a side hustle as well. So,
and is people that, are trying to support that? Is that a good thing?
Oh, I always recommend having a plan B. So whether it's a side hustle or always be looking or something else, you are employed at will. Your company, this guy that I spoke to, looks like he is doing well at Deloitte. But Deloitte could decide to cut 20,000 people, and he might be in a group that they decide to cut. So, yeah, that's a great thing to do.
You know, the iron, in my opinion, the irony is if none of those people at Deloitte had side hustles, maybe they wouldn't need to cut down that many people. You know, and I don't know the answer, but I question at what point does the side hustle no longer become a side hustle, but a side distraction from your core competency? You know, because I can imagine, because as an entrepreneur and equity holder in a business, and I have employees with side hustles, I question, if you get a phone call and it's a $2,000 client for a widget that you're now selling on Amazon that you're buying cheap on Alibaba, but your $2,000 client now the call was running over. And now you got your formal meeting with Grovara or whatever company you're working for. What do you do? And as a employee with no equity, real incentive, relative who likes their job, I can imagine myself being like, "Hey, sorry, running late today, guys," and then just sticking to my side hustle as a priority over my regular business. I mean, is that a realistic? I mean, that makes sense, right?
You can do that. And like when I was working at Salesforce and running Kadima, I would always prioritize my Salesforce stuff. But sometimes if I got invited to a meeting that I knew was a waste of my time, I would just say, hey, I'll just follow up. And like I had a conflict with something with Kadima that was actually a good use of my time, I would reject the meeting and say, I'll watch it on video later. Because there are lots of stupid meetings that I was invited to as a leader and that had no agenda, that had no need for me to be there. And I was showing up basically for FaceTime. So I made those decisions, but I did sign an agreement with Salesforce, an outside business activity, to say that I would only do Kadima during non-working hours. Non-working hours are kind of very ambiguous now, but I made sure that my stuff at Salesforce got done. Doesn't mean everybody's going to take that same prioritization, but I did reduce the stuff that I was involved with that before I was going to for FaceTime, or like, oh, maybe this will get me promoted if I show up and say some silly sentence in a meeting with like 84 different people in the meeting room. I was like, I'm just not going to this. It's not a good use of my time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about something else that's happening these days, artificial intelligence.
Yes.
How do you see it impacting your job, career, and the workforce at large?
So AI and ML have been around for years. I remember working with the engineering team at Facebook where we were trying to use AI to match up our advertiser records to the industry and some other things to like reduce our manual effort. So it was costing us about $6 per manual effort. So we're trying to talk to the AI team to try to automate that so that we can eliminate that $6 per record issue. What the interesting thing is with ChatGPT, and there's some other ones that are doing these image creation, they're basically supplanting creators and influencers, which is actually honestly okay, because there are so many people spewing so much crap out there, whether it's on LinkedIn or Twitter or TikTok, that maybe an AI tool that can create content that's more engaging is better than a lot of the crap that is created out there. So,
well, let's use an example.
Yeah.
What does Kadima Careers have a slogan?
Yes, you own your career, we accelerate it.
Ooh. I just asked chat.openai, write me a slogan for Kadima Careers.
What they say?
It's pretty good. Advancing careers, comma, transforming futures.
That's not too shabby either.
I know. It's pretty good.
That was really quick. You just did that. So it took me multiple weekends, multiple conversations, multiple back and forth until I decided on you own your career, we accelerate it. So that would have been a lot quicker. And that's probably like arguably better, but I already have a trademark on you own your career, we accelerate it.
I'm so amazed at, again, to your point, look how quick they can just do stuff.
I'm writing my newsletter. Like I used to have a copywriter writing my newsletter, and I just tried ChatGPT of like, write me a newsletter about career advice. And it spit out some stuff that was actually pretty decent. And I thought about using it, but it's the same. The thing is, it's going to be commoditized. So all this stuff is.
What do you mean by that?
There's going to be no difference. So that slogan is great, but it's not going to just be all about the slogan. It's going to be about the product and the execution as well. So words are pretty easy to replicate. Images apparently are fairly good to replicate and create as well. I've seen some people using AI. Instead of buying stock imagery, they'll put it into this tool. I forget which one it is, but they're like, design me an image of an inspirational person climbing a mountain. And they'll spit out some image, and then you can use that. So it's a commodity. Then everybody can use it.
But you also need I'm impressed and intrigued by the prompting, because there's tricks I think it's one thing to use AI. It's another thing to actually know how to use it to maximize the ROI of it. I think like there's to your point, there's specific words you can use to make your art that AI generates for you that much better. Or so I think that in itself is going to be a new profession, is people who are trained to use AI to do their job.
Well, yeah, it's like the Google search engine. There are much more powerful ways to use Google search with the Boolean search strings and what to include and what to exclude. I worked for Google for 5.5 years. I don't know how to do all that, but you can actually use it a lot more powerful than just putting in Google of where can I get a hamburger right now? Right.
But what about, okay. And from like an AI perspective, do you have any like question about, or like, has a trepidation about, like, perfect example here. find me the top. If I ask Chat.OpenAI, who are the top 5 companies that I should apply for a job to, given my ABC credential, and it spits it out. And I'm assuming there's got to be another AI that can, make me a resume. Another AI that then can apply for the jobs for me. Is it realistic that within the next 10 years, even like a recruiter position or a placement position will be replaced? Or do you think that relationship aspect will always trump the technology component?
Well, yeah, it's like the Google search engine. There are much more powerful ways to use Google search with the Boolean search strings and what to include and what to exclude. I don't even, I worked for Google for 5.5 years. I don't know how to do all that, but you can actually use it a lot more powerful than just putting in Google of where can I get a hamburger right now.
But what about, okay, and from like an AI perspective, do you have any question about, or has a trepidation about perfect example here. Find me the top, if I ask Chat.OpenAI, who are the top 5 companies that I should apply for a job to, given my ABC credential, and it spits it out. And I'm assuming there's got to be another AI that can, make me a resume, another AI that then can apply for the jobs for me. Is it realistic that within the next 10 years, even like a recruiter position or a placement position will be replaced? Or do you think that relationship aspect will always trump the technology component?
I would love if algorithms actually identified talent. Humans make really poor choices. And because of that, that's why referrals have such an advantage. Just because you know me should not give you any advantage versus someone who's totally qualified for a role. I'm not saying you're not qualified, but if you're like, hey, Alan, I'm really trying to get a job at Microsoft. Can you put me in touch with someone there? Yeah, I can put you in touch with someone there and you can probably get interviewed there. But on paper, you're not the type of person that would succeed at Microsoft. Not that you're not, because you haven't worked in a big corporate setting.
I'm not offended.
Yeah. But that's a wrong reason for you to be considered. So I would actually prefer an algorithm to determine who is the right fit for it than humans, because humans can be persuaded, and humans are that. That's what I teach people. I teach people how to do interviewing skills well so that you're decent. And then the rest of it is influencing the decision makers. And you should not be able to influence a decision maker, but that's how life is. That's so
makes sense.
I would be all for an algorithm deciding who should go for the job. You might need to have some experienced human to oversee it and have some sort of appeal process, but algorithms, I'm a firm believer, are better than human decisions in so many situations.
Yeah, it's very complimentary to what we're doing at Grovara. We're always technology. Grovara is technology with a human touch, because at the end of the day, and at least for the foreseeable future, there's always going to be a need for an actual person to help with a transaction, an international transaction, because there's so many variables, and the technology just isn't even close to what you have to file a form with the State Department. Yeah, actually have to go there and get it stamped, file it in person. There's no robots.
Well, that would be beautiful for an algorithm. Why the hell do you have to do that? That's ridiculous. I got my 2 kids, my 2 boys, their driver's license. There was no need for us to be there in person. We could have scanned stuff to some system. They didn't even look at it that carefully, but we had to be there in person. We had to fill out all these forms, and
do you like that? You don't like being in person at all. You like this streamlining with technology.
It took me an hour and a half to take my kids to the DMV there and back, and wait in line and wait in the other line. And if I could have just submitted all the information, and they would have just verified it in some sort of way, and they have these databases, that would have been lovely. It would have saved me an hour of time. It might have taken me 30 minutes to fill out all the paperwork online, but yes, I think there's lots of things that can be automated. I think there's lots of value for human interaction. But going to the DMV to get your driver's license, no.
Are there any areas right now where you're seeing a lot more interest in hiring? Like I know that like security, like IT security is like a really is on the rise. But is there anything else that you're seeing that people maybe who are just got laid off and are going to be seeing this should be considering?
Climate tech. Everybody knows the world is going to the pooper, and regulation is not going to change it. People's behavior change is not going to change it. There is going to be technological innovation that will change it. I don't know what the solution is, but there's some very interesting ideas out there. And all the metrics point to the earth heating up, to water levels rising, to people being displaced and killed because of these situations. There will be a need to fix things from energy production, from energy reduction, from all different type of things. So I'm very bullish on climate tech, and I know that's a very broad-based term, and everyone's calling something climate tech now. But I would argue that that's a hell of a lot better than ad tech, because that's how Facebook and Google made all their billions of dollars. Because how do you optimize to persuade a consumer to buy a tweezer that they didn't need? And then, like, how does Amazon get that to you in 4 hours after you order that? So I'd rather have people solving big issues than how to optimize your ad spend.
All right. Is there anything else that you think you're finding of interest that we should review, discuss?
The only last thing I would say is, with all these layoffs occurring, people, first off, being laid off is tough. I've been laid off so many times, and I also am someone who just lets things roll off them. That's just kind of how I am. But people are getting laid off now. It's a very stressful time. I think it's the third most.
What do you recommend these people when they first get laid off? If you're not like you don't have something roll off you, what do you suggest?
So people need to process it, but I would advise them to process it as quickly as possible and then take action. And especially people that are getting laid off from Microsoft and Google and Goldman Sachs and Amazon and Microsoft, you have ridiculous high quality names on your resume. And that gives you credibility and authority that then you can leverage and take somewhere else. So while it does suck, and I do feel for people that have been laid off there, and it's like the third most stressful thing, I think, after death of your spouse and moving. I think losing your job is the third one. I forget the order, but it's up there in the top three. Use this as an opportunity to take rejection and use it as redirection. So you have a good name on your resume. You have access to LinkedIn. 875 million people are in LinkedIn. They're working at every company and organization that you could ever think of. Build those relationships, which you're particularly good at, Peter, of building those relationships, because it's still an imperfect process. There's still no algorithm deciding it. So if you can get in front of the right person and demonstrate that you are humble, respectful, done your research, you follow through, you will have and you have Amazon on your resume, or you have Stripe on your resume, or you have Coinbase on your resume, you will have it. And especially if you have Google or Microsoft or Facebook on your resume, you will have a disproportionately higher chance of success in your next opportunity.
Yeah, maybe you can be one of those, instead of you apply 300 jobs and 47 back, 300 jobs get 200 back or something. No,
I don't know. My resume was pretty good. Like when I was applying, I had Google on there, I had Salesforce on there, I had Facebook on there.
So it's like a 20% like reply rate. Is that, you think, average?
I got a higher rate than most. So the 15.7% that I got was pretty good, but there's ways to optimize that. If you apply at the right place, at the right time, for the right sort of role, on the right sites. There's different, like if you're applying on Indeed or LinkedIn, you're at a disadvantage than if you're applying on adobe.com/jobs or spotify.com/careers. And there's lots of reasons why, but I was applying a lot of the correct strategies to increase that likelihood. Most people should not expect 15.7% interview rate.
And you're very active on LinkedIn. You're probably one of the best I know on LinkedIn.
Well, you don't know enough people on LinkedIn, because I am aspiring. I only have 26,000 followers. I'm aiming for six figures or more.
I mean,
but anyway,
that's more than probably 95% of the people that I interact with. Yeah. So you got, and that's just me.
I'm learning. I'm learning.
Are there any other tools besides LinkedIn that you use?
LinkedIn, I have a podcast, the Sick Career Podcast. So your listeners should listen there. SYCK. Steer Your Career with Kadima. But I am predominantly on LinkedIn and YouTube. And YouTube, I'm having a hard time figuring out. I only have 190 subscribers. So if your listeners want to look at my stuff on the Kadima Careers channel, you should check that out. We provide a lot of free content, but I have not dabbled in I have an account on Instagram. I don't do anything with it. I haven't touched TikTok. It's I just don't have time in the day to focus on these other platforms. Any
pointers for people who do use LinkedIn that you're finding, like post on Tuesdays at 5 or something that specific like that?
Be consistent. So post regularly. In terms of the time, I've been told, and I've been told by multiple different coaches different things, but the general thing I hear is don't post during lunchtime. Like if you do it like stay away from noon time as much as possible, like whatever time zone that you're in. I think also things that try to engage people and bring people in are good. I don't know. I haven't figured it out myself. I have yet to have a viral post. My biggest post has gotten 30,000 views, and it was exploiting my kids. Yeah, but it was exploiting, it wasn't exploiting my kids. It was a post where I was proud of my son, Lucas, of interviewing for his first job. I took a picture of him, like he was on a video screen. And I was like, proud papa of my son who's interviewing for his first job. And I don't know, for some reason that one got 30,000 views and lots of likes.
Kids.
That one and transparency. So I've also posted my W-2. I post what my compensation was at Salesforce. That one got a lot of views as well.
Cool.
But people are, if you're an attractive person, which I'm not, but if you're an attractive person, especially I notice attractive women, they do a good job of showing their pictures on there, not in seductive ways, but they're just playing to their cards. Like if you look at Hala Taha, she's an attractive woman. All her most of her posts are posts of her image, and she has a ridiculous amount of followers. I don't think her content is all that interesting. It's okay, but the pictures are getting a lot of interest.
Well, it's always nice to see something nice.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I can see that. And all right, well, of your 3 kids, who's your favorite?
Definitely. No, I'm not going to say that. It's a tie.
You got to say your dogs. You're a dog guy.
Well, my dogs, I think Coco would be my favorite. I have Coco and Tootsie, but Tootsie's good too. So I don't know. It depends. Tootsie just barks a little bit too much. And
is there anything else? Anything you want to plug? You said you got your Sick podcast. You got Kadima Careers if you're looking for a job. And and what's your YouTube channel?
It is at Kadima Careers. So I forget what if you Google, or if YouTube is actually the second most popular search engine after Google. But if you go to YouTube and you type in Kadima Careers, Kadima Careers, you'll find our channel and subscribe. We put really good stuff on there. I showed we dissected a real live Google offer letter, a 20-page offer letter. We have shown lots of things about what to do with interviewing and what not to do, how to turn your layoff into a payoff. So there's lots of good stuff on there.
Oh, that's cool. You always got these one-liners that Chat GBT might be the only thing that'll compete with you on there.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate your time, Alan, coming in here today. If anyone is unemployed, looking for their next step, or just bored at their job and ready to elevate their career, talk to Alan or talk to me, and I'll put you in touch with Alan.
Yeah.
We'll put your contact information up here. And what else can I tell you? That's pretty much it, Alan. I really appreciate your time. And I can't believe this was 43 minutes. We covered a lot of ground.
Awesome, Peter. Well, thank you for hosting me on your podcast. It was a great time.
Yeah, the Global Grove coming to you live on location here at Villanova School of Law as the entrepreneur in residence. This is my first podcast as the entrepreneur in residence here. It's pretty neat. You got to come down here and check out my office.
I'll check it out.